Okay, let's talk a little bit more about the geography and the place of Little Burgundy. And we're going to be comparing and contrasting Little Burgundy of Montreal to a neighborhood called Rondo in St. Paul. So Oscar died on December 23rd, 2007, although much of his neighborhood where he grew up is gone forever, demolished in the construction of the Ville Marie Expressway in the 1970s. Oscar's legacy lives on in the students and jazz enthusiasts who have been influenced by his music and his role in putting Montreal and Little Burgundy on the map of jazz history. So you can see the Ville Marie Expressway there in this picture. So it cut right through his old neighborhood. It was built in the 1970s. Little Burgundy was home to many working class Black families. There were many Black-owned businesses in the neighborhood as well. In the 1970s, 3,000 homes and businesses were torn down to build the expressway or the interstate. It's the highway, right? In 1970s, less expensive apartments were built in the corner of the neighborhood next to the expressway. In the 1980s, townhomes were built in the center of the neighborhood. In the 1990s, very expensive condos. Very expensive condos. I need to hide the tools. Okay. In the 1990s, very expensive condos were built next to the canal. Little Burgundy was home to many working class Black families. After the homes were torn down and the expressway was built, the people who were living there had to find new homes. They were either forced out of the neighborhood because it was too expensive or put into less expensive apartments next to the interstate. Because they are near the expressway with many cars, the air is not as healthy to breathe. And above, you can see a picture here of a government worker taking a photo of a home they were planning to tear down. And here above, the new public housing buildings the city built as less expensive housing. What do you notice about these pictures? Do you recognize where this might be? This is on the Interstate 94 that goes right through St. Paul. So let me show you that again. You can see the cathedral there. Here's downtown St. Paul. And this highway, Highway 94, goes right through another neighborhood called the Rondo neighborhood. So Interstate 94 goes across the country here. You can see on a bigger scale through Detroit, Chicago, Milwaukee, up through St. Paul, Minneapolis, and then up through North Dakota and into Montana. So it goes all that way. Here we have a zoomed in image. Highway 94 goes between St. Paul and Minneapolis here. So Interstate 94 connects St. Paul and Minneapolis. It is a large interstate going from Montana to Michigan. It goes through many large cities like Minneapolis, Chicago, Milwaukee, and Detroit, and it was built in the 1950s. In St. Paul, it goes through the middle of the Rondo neighborhood. City leaders considered two plans for where they could build the interstate. One idea was next to the railroad tracks through no neighborhood, the northern route, which would have been here. One idea was through a Black neighborhood called Rondo, right here. They decided to build it through the Rondo neighborhood without asking the residents of Rondo, only asking mostly white business owners. Black residents were forced to sell and leave their homes and businesses. They were only paid part of what their homes were worth, and then they were torn down. This is a really sad part of our local history. You can see right here, you see all those houses? There used to be houses all right here, and they were just torn down in this huge, it was all dug out so that they could build the highway. So some things to reflect on, what I would like for you to share on this discussion board. You can pick one of these questions or more, one or two. How do you think the people who lived in Little Burgundy felt when they were forced to move? How do you think the people who lived in Rondo felt when they were forced to move? Do you think this was fair? How could the city leaders have done things differently? How are Montreal and St. Paul similar? How are Montreal and St. Paul different?